No win.
Okay. You are live.
Okay, let's call to order the City Council meeting, the regular meeting for October 12th, 2021. Before the roll call, the City Attorney has an announcement.
Good evening. Assembly Bill 361 suspends certain provisions of the Brown Act, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. I ask you, Mr. Mayor, to recognize me after the roll call to confirm some things for the record.
Okay, conduct the roll call, please.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Burrows.
Here.
Councilmember Zafar.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Here.
Mayor Hudson.
Here. We recognize the City Attorney.
Thank you. Based on responses to the roll call, the record should reflect that all council members and commissioners can hear the proceedings clearly. And if there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each council member and commissioner council member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be council members are in fact council members. And seeing no objection, I'll turn the meeting back to the mayor with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Okay, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 3, 3.1, changes and additions to the agenda. Do we have any?
There are no changes today.
Okay, seeing none, let's go on to 3.2, which is instructions for the evening. If you wish to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone to request to speak when public comment is being taken on the agenda item. You will then be unmuted when it is your turn to make your comments for up to 3 minutes. After the allotted time, you will then be remuted. And we have about the lengthiest, I'm going to do a faster than our city attorney did because of our previous special meeting, and we're going to bring him into the meeting tonight. At this time, I'd like to remind all speakers of the following guidelines for participation in this public hearing. I may briefly interrupt your testimony in order to encourage compliance with these guidelines I'm about to give you. So when you are speaking, it is important to keep these in mind. No profanity or obscenity. Refrain from personal threats or attacks. Respect all people. Refrain from hateful epithets and demeaning language based on hate of a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or disability. Respect all people that are present or watching. At my discretion, I may remove any speaker for the duration of today's meeting for any of the following reasons: exceeding the allotted time to speak, yelling, screaming, or other behavior that renders this council unable to continue this meeting, excessive profanity or slander, specific threats or fighting words that incite violence, speech that is outside the subject matter jurisdiction of the council or the specific agenda item in which you are speaking. Item 3.3 is boards, committee, and commission meetings. A complete list of upcoming meetings may be found on the city's website at www.sanramon.ca.gov. Subscription service is available at the link for automatic meeting notification. Contact the city clerk with questions, 925-973-2539. You're the most popular person in San Ramon now, Christina, because I'm sure the entire population was listening for that. Okay, public comment. At this time, the public is permitted to, public comment's open. At this time, the public, thought I saw somebody waving. Okay, that's just me. At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on items that are on the consent calendar. So let me get participants up there. I have 4 attendees that are going to want to speak. A request for future agenda items. Special presentation items under section 6 of tonight's agenda, and items that are not on the agenda. So I have 5 attendees already. Let me just say, if you wish to speak under public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand. 5 people have. Feature on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone. When it is your turn to talk, and call upon a name if provided. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, up to, and a clock will be running on the Zoom screen. I see it's up already. The speaker's microphone will be muted once the allotted time has expired. So we have 5. Let's start with Sue Bach at the top of the list. Sue, can you come in? And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Before I begin, I want to congratulate San Ramon for taking action to be the #2 EV city in Contra Costa County. That's quite a feat.
Yep.
As a nurse who has lived and worked in San Ramon for over 20 years, I'm concerned about the preservation of the quality of life in my city. People are paying attention, and it's no wonder that people's #2 concern from a recent poll is climate change. A climate emergency, which I am requesting, effectively means that San Ramon will pay particular attention to cutting short-lived warming agents like methane and black carbon, which will help slow climate change even more than cutting carbon dioxide. Some of these cuts will be easy and fast, but some of these emissions are going to take a while to phase out. We must keep at it. Steady progress is what matters here. I invite the City Council to make an impact for its citizens and act accordingly. Declare a climate emergency to let the residents of San Ramon know that you will back up your words with action. Develop an interim cap until the revision of the current cap is complete and include community member participation in a task force. Encourage the city's HOAs to encourage homeowners to remove lawns and replace with drought-tolerant landscaping. The consequences of not fixing these issues include further degradation of our local air quality, delays in moving forward with a more current cap with increased cost, continuing water shortages with more demands for water cutbacks. I am here today to ask you to do the right thing and take action for the betterment of San Ramon. You may think the residents of San Ramon or the Tri-Valley may be silent because they don't care. In that, I would ask you to think again. Thank you for your time and consideration of my request.
Okay, next speaker is call-in user number 1.
City Council members, I just want to say that if the city truly values regular citizens' input instead of activist input, the previous speaker obviously is an activist. She is representing some sort of organization who is trying to push for climate change. It is extremely politically motivated. If you truly care about regular people who really don't have much money to even come to a meeting like this, please lower your appeal fee. You are not perfect. The reason why America is a strong country is because different branches of the government supervises each other, including the public. I was extremely disappointed today that you all voted to take my $2,500, which really should have been refunded back to me. The whole appeal that I filed against Sandbox VR is to protect our children. It was very evident in August 17th meeting that the staff and the commissioners did not have enough operational information, health information, and characteristics of the nature of this business having to use so many equipment. All those information were not discovered. Nobody cared. I ended up paying for the blunder. I don't have that kind of money to pay. But all you care about is, oh, would another person, file because of me as the president? Why is it that the bar is set so high at $2,500? for an appeal. It is undemocratic, it is authoritarian, and it reminds me of communist Chinese regime. Please lower your appeal fee and consider giving me back my money. Thank you.
Chris Breed.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. I'm here to follow up what Sue said, uh, to call on San Ramon to add discussion of a climate emergency resolution to a future agenda. After this crazy summer we've had, I'm sure we can all see that climate change isn't really some future problem we have to worry about. Its extreme impacts are already here and incredibly viscerally present. We've seen extreme heat days, increase in days with bad air quality, worsened droughts, more extreme wildfires, all of whose impacts are exacerbating existing inequalities that fall along income, age, race, and class lines. And San Ramon can really be a leader in fighting against, climate change in the San Ramon Valley. So I would just love to see the city council take up a climate emergency resolution discussion on a future agenda to plan on what the city can do to fight climate change in our municipality. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Sarah.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hello, City Council. It's me, Sarah Lashin Liu, and I have a very simple request for a future agenda item, which you've heard before already tonight. I simply request that we add the discussion of declaring a climate emergency as a city to a future agenda. And while that may seem pointless at best and performative at worst, I promise you when it's on a future agenda, community members and city council members will all come to the table together and actually for once have a designated time to talk about how San Ramon can take action on the climate. So once more, simple request, add declaration of climate emergency discussion to a future agenda. Thank you so much.
Chirag.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to follow up on Sue, Chris, Sarah, and you know me previously, I've been in talking. So I would like city to take actions on climate action and bring climate emergency in discussion. And we would definitely work together. And I really appreciate all the city council members who put your time in every meetings. And if we bring this up, we'll be very happy resident, and we should take the leadership in the Tri-Valley, especially. Danville will follow us when we start something. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have no other hands. Do I have any written public comments provided before the meeting?
We did receive one written comment, but it's for an item on the consent calendar.
Okay. Well, which item is it?
Item 5.5, it was sent to the city council prior to the meeting.
Okay, well, let's pull that and then council can discuss whether or not how much we'll do it as a separate, if that's okay with I don't see anybody objecting to that. We'll pull it as a separate vote. I would just add that we all have that in written if you want to read it again. But in the meantime, I will just say, while we encourage your comments, unfortunately, state law prevents the city council from discussing items that are not on their meeting agenda. They do take them very seriously. However, we will follow up if we feel they are appropriate. Public comment is closed. Consent calendar is open. Consent calendar items are considered routine and are acted upon by the city council with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input may request by mail, and they did. So we pulled 5.5 just in case they want to comment on it. Anyone from the council wish to remove a item from? Seeing no panelists? If no one wants to remove, do they want to move the
I'll
consent
move
calendar?
5-1 through 5-4.
Okay, we have a motion Perkins, second Barros. Any further discussion from the council members? Seeing none, can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Barros,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson.
Yes. And item 5.5 will now be under deferred consent calendar, or item 7, so it'll be 755. We will move on to special presentation. That was a 5-0 vote. Let's do proclamation of 6.1. This is declaring October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I will be presenting this to Mega, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Sharma of Rewire Community. So let's bring her in so that she will be able to discuss or answer any questions we may have afterwards. And do you have the proclamation, or should I just start reading?
I do have the proclamation. I don't see Mega signed in as an attendee, but I do have another representative from Rewire Community.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let me read the proclamation, and then Mega, if she's here afterwards, we'll bring her in. If not, we'll get everyone from Rewire Community in there. Okay, I have under 6.1, a proclamation of the City Council of the City of San Ramon declaring October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. Whereas 1 in every 3 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime. 1 in every 4 women will experience sexual assault in her lifetime, and 1 in 6 men have had abusive or unwanted sexual experiences in their lifetime. And whereas approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. And whereas when a family member is abused, it can have a long-term damaging effect on the victim that also leave a mark on family, friends, and the community at large. And whereas families are indispensable to a stable society, and they should be a place of support to instill responsibility and values in the next generation. And whereas violence against women and children is a prevalent social ill due to the historical imbalance of power in gender and age. However, sexual and domestic violence are widespread and are devastating to society as a whole. And whereas the problem of sexual and domestic violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers, and are sustained by societal indifference. And whereas the crimes of domestic and sexual violence violate an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse. And whereas victims should have help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing they need, and abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. And whereas victims of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, emergency and transitional housing, and other supportive services so that they can escape the cycle of abuse. Whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to victims of domestic and sexual violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. And whereas local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic and sexual violence and its prevalence, and to eliminating it through prevention and education. And whereas we dedicate ourselves to protecting vulnerable members of our community. And whereas San Ramon has a moral obligation to work to prevent domestic violence, address its brutal and destructive effects, and make ending domestic violence a local priority. Whereas there are local programs and services available to victims of domestic violence and their children, such as Rewire Community. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of San Ramon does hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and urge all citizens to actively support, work towards the elimination of domestic violence, signed October 12th by the mayor, me. And let's take a look and see if we have Mega in. Did she come in? If not, Ms. Sharma, do we have someone for her from just drew a dead blank on
Rewire community.
yes, thank you.
It does look like we have a representative.
More coffee. And can they introduce themselves, and then we'll let the council call in user one. Now that
Shailaja and Yamini Dixit.
Yeah.
You got.
Hi. Yeah, this is Yamini here. Actually, the one who's listed as Shailaja is Megha. Can we unmute her? Yeah, she logged in with the wrong Zoom ID, so she can speak for Rewire Community.
What was the name again? I'm sorry.
Shailaja Dixit, last name. Dixit.
She's in the meeting. She can unmute.
Okay, unmute. You're up. And Mega's in.
That's Megha. There you go.
Sorry for the confusion.
You're in the right place.
All right. Dear Mayor Hudson, San Ramon City Council members, and everyone watching and attending this meeting today. My name is Megha Sharma Narang. I'm the Communications and Cultural Outreach Lead for Rewire Community. It's my honor and pleasure to receive the proclamation declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month on behalf of Rewire Community. According to the UN, domestic abuse, also called domestic violence, is defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. Abuse may be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. DV can happen to anyone of any race, age, sexual orientation, religion, gender, education, or economic status. The statistics from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence in the US are alarmingly high. And through the pandemic, with an upsurge in unemployment, work disparity, and isolation, the incident rates have increased by another 8%, causing additional adversities for the vulnerable sections of our community. We recognize that our city is not immune to that. Rewire Community supports ongoing work in the area of DV by creating dialogue and action and mobilizing community resources. Our work in providing survivor care relief through the pandemic was recently recognized by Asian Women's Shelter, who awarded us the 2021 Champions of Change Award. We remain committed to believing and supporting survivors of gender-based violence, to acknowledging the intersectionality of the DV movement with other movements, to creating an inclusive movement that is constantly expanding to respect all identities and works from a place of love and compassion, to bring together circles of care in our community. The 2021 national theme for DV Awareness Month is Everyone Knows Someone, signifying how this is tragically universally prevalent and that we all have power to make a difference. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak and for this proclamation. We are proud to be part of the San Ramon City that recognizes the importance of highlighting this issue and is open to working with community members to create resources, education, and action.
I think we're going to say thank you to you, Sharma. I mean, this is our Mega. I think this is going to be a month that I hope a lot of people are more and more aware of the problems that we have out there. So many times you just don't realize it until these numbers come out, millions and millions of children. But anyway, I'll put it before the council. Any comments or questions of Ms. Sharma and Sabina?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Megha, so much. Thank you so much for bringing this to the attention of the council. And Mayor, thank you for the proclamation. These proclamations are an important message, right? That we recognize, we're aware, and we will provide services. And community partners like yourself at Rewire are there to help residents as well. So part of it is awareness, right? Domestic violence victims also are afraid, sometimes live under the shadows. and don't speak a lot of times. And when they are aware that there is somebody to help and support them, then, you never know who may reach out how. So thank you so much for bringing this, to the City Council, and thank you, Mayor, for the recognition.
Thank
Very
you
well.
so much.
Sridhar.
Thank you, Mega, and Yamini and entire Rewire community for all your efforts to increase awareness about the devastating effects of domestic violence in the community. As mentioned in the proclamation, domestic violence doesn't just impact individuals and families, it devastates the entire community because it acts as a precursor for many other forms of violence that we see across the nation and worldwide. So for me, yeah, just listening and learning are not just enough, but every one of us within the community need to stand up against domestic violence. By the way, my special thanks to Shailaja Dikshit of Rewire community. She's always there for community to reach out. So whenever I receive some complaints or issues within the community, I always pass it to Shailaja, and she's always there for us to help. So once again, thanks for all your great work, Rewire community.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further comments on it, I don't think we could say it enough times. Thank you so much for what you do for the community. It always amazes me how sometimes it just starts off with a word here, a word there. I had somebody complained about Meals on Wheels. We weren't getting, all of a sudden, we had volunteers coming out of the woodworks to make that a success. And that's what it takes. Sometimes you just need to say the right word at the right time. And I think, Mega, tonight, you made that right word and did Sabina and Sridhar to adding to it. And I just can't thank you enough. Okay, this is an item that there is no council action required. I know we have an attendee who wants to speak. We do that under item 4 for presentations. So we will move on to 6.2, which is introduction and presentation of the city's social services resources webpage. There's a mouthful. And draft brochure. Becky Adams, are you with us tonight? You have the floor.
Fantastic. Thank you and good evening, Mayor Hudson, fellow city council members, city staff, and members of the public. It is my great pleasure to be here tonight to discuss an incredibly important topic and how the city of San Ramon has responded. During the pandemic, a multitude of items came to the forefront and the city needed to do something for the community. About a year ago, staff was approached by concerned residents regarding access to resources for domestic violence victims here in San Ramon. There was clearly a need to provide access to domestic violence resources to our San Ramon community. However, as we dug into this topic more, we realized how much bigger the issue really was. It wasn't just about connecting the victims to the police department. We needed a holistic approach to give people hope and the ability to find exactly what they needed in one spot. And so we began the process of developing the list of social services resources for San Ramon residents, and ultimately new pages were added to the city website and a draft brochure was created that I'll show you this evening. And Christina, do you have the presentation up? Thank you. So next slide, please. Okay, so as mentioned, it has been over a year in the making to get here this evening. And here's just a quick look at how we arrived at tonight's meeting and the progression of the project. So as mentioned, about a year ago, city staff was contacted by concerned residents, and the Parks and Community Services staff took the lead on this since we connect with the community each and every day. And so we met with the concerned residents to discuss the need and the process. And the staff then worked with the group to develop a list of resources. And then Parks and Community Services staff contacted San Ramon Police Department for collaboration. And then the group developed the list of resources, and we vetted that list of resources. And then we developed the web pages that are listed on the City of San Ramon website tonight. And then again, the Parks and Community Services staff met with the police department staff to discuss the development of the social services resources brochure or pamphlet. We then published the web pages and created a draft pamphlet. And then we are at the meeting tonight where I'll go over the website as well as the draft brochure. Next slide, please. And so on your screen, you will see we wanted to make sure that we had easy access to the website and to the brochure. And so ultimately the brochure will be linked onto the website as well. And so this was a two-pronged approach between the website and the online resources and the brochure. So let's just start with the web pages that we have developed this evening. So as we were working through the project, it was decided, if you can go back to the next slide, please, Christina. As we were working through this project, it was decided that we wanted this to be as easy as possible to find on the city website. So there's two easy ways to access the social services resources page. And that's the first one is a custom URL. And so it's the city domain, so sanramon.ca.gov/social_resources. Or from the city webpage, which is on your screen, you can roll your cursor over our city that's at the top of the page. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see the social services resources listing there. So if you click on that button, next slide, please. That will take you to the homepage for the social services resources. And so as you will see, we do have the list of resources on the left, and they match the resource tiles and pictures that are on the right. And as mentioned, we wanted to make this a single stop for as many resources as possible, because we know that someone who may be experiencing a crisis needs this information as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So as we were developing these resources, they were broken down into 9 different categories, which you see, which are crisis and helplines, shelters and safe havens, legal resources, basic need resources, mental health resources, location-specific resources, resources for non-US residents, food resources, and transportation resources. And by having the resources on the website, we can easily add additional ones as they're identified. And if COVID has taught us anything, it's taught us that it's incredibly important to be flexible and customizable. And so hopefully we don't need to react and pivot as quickly as we have been over the last 18 months or so. But if we need to, we can certainly do that on our website to make this more available for our San Ramon community. Next slide, please. And so from that homepage, if you were to click, I just want to show you an example of one of the secondary pages here. And so if you were on that homepage and you were to click on crisis and helplines, the list of resources will be displayed, which is showed in the left-hand picture on your screen. And then if you were to click on, for example, stand, which is shown on the picture on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see that a short description of the organization or resource is available, and their contact information, including a phone number and a URL for their website. And from here, an individual can click directly on the URL to visit their website, or they can call them and have access to the phone numbers. And this is just an example of how the resources work. On all of the different 9 tabs that we have. This is the same format for all of the pages. You will be able to you'll be able to click on each of the resource, find the website, find the phone number right there at your fingertips as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. And so moving on to the second prong approach, and that is the social services resources pamphlet or brochure that we have developed. And so this is a trifold brochure. So it does look a little funny on the page tonight, but once it's folded, it does make sense the way that things are laid out. And so the goal for the brochure is to have it available at all city facilities, community centers, libraries, city hall, swimming pools, anywhere that we really want in the city, have it available for the community so that they have access to these resources. Additionally, our goal is to have this available to all of our police officers as well, so they have these resources on calls that they respond to. And the brochure will also be available at the San Ramon Police Department building. And the brochure idea really came about because the police department previously had a flyer that was specific to domestic violence, and it really focused a lot on the legal actions that could be done. And since we went with the holistic approach of a variety of resources, and we really wanted this project to be all encompassing, we decided to make the brochure all encompassing as well. And so some of the same resources that are included on the website And of course, they direct them to the website for more information. So you will see on the right-hand side of that brochure under social services resources, it does have the URL for our city website. And of course, in case of emergency, we are urging people to call 911. Next page, please. And so on the other side of the resources pamphlet is additional information. And you will see right there in the middle of the page, we have the domestic violence information. And this was intentional so that if someone who is in a crisis or a domestic violence situation, we didn't want it to be blatant to the type of resources that they were seeking. And so for the domestic violence information, I worked with Officer Mike Green to vet this information and to ensure the included information is what the police officers need in the field. And again, it provides a multi-pronged approach, not just domestic violence, but then also shelters, safe havens, food resources, really a way to help someone, a victim who may be experiencing a crisis. And you'll also notice under the domestic violence piece, just above where it says for emergencies, we wanted to make sure that we had a link to the victims' rights page on the San Ramon Police Department's websites. And so we created a custom bit.ly, a shortened URL, and you'll see that it is /SR victims rights. And so that URL will take people directly to the victims' rights page on the police department's web pages. Next slide, please, Christina. And so putting this information together, creating the website and the brochure has been a long road, but it has been such a rewarding one. And I'd be remiss not to give a special thanks to, she's been mentioned tonight, Shalaija Dixit, Ria Panda, Pooja Prasad, Janan Jaje, and Officer Mike Green, who without them, none of this would have been possible. Shalaija, Ria, and Pooja helped create the resources list, provided the contact information and short descriptions so that I could vet the information before turning it over to Janan to create the web pages. And of course, Officer Mike Green provided invaluable direction and support from the police department's perspective. Last but not least, I'd like to mention that as we heard earlier this evening, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And in recognition of this, city staff is working on lighting the City Hall Rotunda in purple lights through October 17th. So thank you for your time this evening and allowing me to show you the social services resources, web pages, and brochures that the city has developed.
No, thank you, Becky. Got a lot going on. Okay, comments or questions from Sabina Zafar? Kick it off.
Yeah, Becky, I just want to say really a lot of thanks to the staff for keeping an eye on this and taking action. There's one thing, obviously, to read the proclamation and say that we're going to do something, but along with that proclamation, being able to have all these resources at our fingertips and getting that community feedback, just kudos for really going above and beyond and doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barros.
Same, thanks, Becky and staff for working with Shailaja Dixit and all the team, bringing this in holistic manner rather than just taking the call to SRPD. As you know, especially because of cultural diversity increase within the community, there is a huge cultural diversity, and also adding more complexity to it is immigration. So that makes it much more complex issue with the domestic violence. So it's great to see that our city is in taking a leadership role in this to make these services provided to the community. So as I always say that we do all these great services, but we need to make sure we educate and share this information with the community through social media, as well as I'm sure I'll share this information with my friends and family and everyone. So thanks once again for all your great work.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Armstrong, then Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yeah, thanks, Becky, for sharing the info on all these social services resources. You know, as we heard from that was a well-written proclamation we heard earlier, and Mega said everyone knows someone. I think that's true. I mean, we could probably go around right now and everyone would acknowledge that. And that could lead to trauma. It could lead to mental health issues and things. So it's good to have these social services resources available for the domestic violence victims and others that need those social services and it's all in one place. So I think it's great. I guess one question, I'm sure this website is easy enough to update as time goes on. I think I saw a suicide prevention hotline on there or something, but now we've got this 988 system coming online in the future. And will we be updating that web page to include that information as well for kind of the suicide prevention lifeline?
Absolutely. We will update the website as often and as quickly as we possibly can or as we need to. So absolutely. And yes, you did see a suicide prevention hotline on there. There's a couple of them actually.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
I just want to say how I'm really pleased at how comprehensive both the website and the brochure are. You've really covered the waterfront, if you will, of social services and put it all in a place that it looks like it's going to be fairly easy to access. And I know that our officers in the field will find that all very useful to direct people to places where they can get some help. We can't always provide every service, but we can certainly provide help in getting people to the service. And that's very important. And thank you for the work you're doing there.
Thank you.
Again, Becky, there's no action taken tonight, but please pass on to Ms. Sharma and the others that you mentioned there. Thanks for the very worthy effort that they're doing and bringing this to the attention of our residents. Again, okay, we are on to the deferred consent item 5.5 for the evening. It was written, you said, Christina, this was someone wrote in a letter on it. Was there just given us a letter, no request to speak on it? Or
Correct. So the public comment was received from Wayne Mortensen. He was providing comments to the city council, but it was not a request to pull the item. But it was provided to the council prior to the meeting.
okay, I put it out there because when you do defer it, that it opens up consent calendar items for the public, and we have one attendee that wishes to speak, and that is call-in user 1.
So
It's not asking for a staff report, Darlene, just public comment to 5.5. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't understand about the process for tonight's meeting. Usually when there is an item that is listed on the agenda, such as 6.1 and 6.2, the public is able to speak to it. If you seriously care about these domestic abuse, don't you want to hear the public who may be calling in to give you some ideas? Why is it that I cannot speak to 6.1 and 6.2?
Is that the comments? I'll address it when you're finished, and we close the public portion.
Okay, I really don't understand. I want to.
These are not specific to this particular item, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, this is not on the transportation right now. Call-in user 1, we're talking about 5.5.
I raised my hand when it was 6.1 and 6.2.
Okay, I'll bring it up at the end of the meeting again. But is there anything on item 5.5?
I'll move item resolution number 2021-115.
No, we have a motion by Perkins. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, second for Rose. No, it cut it off. Should not discussing item 5.5. Any further discussion or comments? Go ahead.
I do have a question. Yeah, I was going to say, so the comment asked about support for disabled and elderly. Do we get a staff report on this to explain how, some of the transportation is available, or do we just take the comments?
Well, the staff report is in the larger issue, but this is pretty much one of the things that was part of Measure J. Correct me if I'm wrong, Darlene, that we've been voted on. This is money that comes from the Air District. You had 4 or 5 people talk earlier about what we're doing, to get rid of the black carbon and the methane, et cetera. Well, these are some of the things we do at the Air District. We collect a couple dollars on your vehicle licensing fee and some other places, and we send it back to the congestion management agencies for their use. And this is one of the things that we voted on to be the use that we use. And I'll leave it at that. Mark Armstrong, you have a question for Darlene?
Well, I can't remember now if you've closed the public comment or not, but
we did.
We do have in attendance, I believe, Wayne Mortensen. He's the one that provided the written comment, and I don't know if he had difficulty trying to get in, or maybe just didn't want to speak and let the written comment speak for itself.
Yeah, we usually do. If you send in the written comment, we accept it, and that's what it is. But because everybody has it in the agenda, I mean, if we did this, every single person would be doing both. And after listening to the first part of this, I can see where there is some confusion. But anyway, that's the case. I'll leave it at 5.5 in the motion. Do you have further comments or questions for Darlene Emerald? Seeing none. Okay, no further comments. The question is to Christina to do the roll call vote.
Councilmember Armstrong?
Yes.
Nice muted, yes.
Councilmember Veros?
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion is approved 5-0.
And before we leave this, I'm going to read this again. I do it at every meeting. I'm going to try not look into my right where Martin's box is so he can stop me. But public comment. At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on items that are on the consent calendar, including requests to pull an item from the consent calendar, requests for future agenda items, special presentation items under section 6 of tonight's agenda, and items that are not on the agenda. So if you wanted to speak to these items, and some person did, that's why we pulled 5.5, you do it under public comment. Having said that, we'll move on to what is on the agenda tonight, and that is there are no city council appointments, but we're going to discuss something about that later. So we're on to unfinished business, the highlight of the night when Robin Bartlett comes up and tells us about a project. He's going to give us an update on project lighting and landscaping design elements of the Bollinger Canyon Road, Iron Horse Trail, bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing project. So Robin, where are you? You've got the floor. There he is. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Yes, thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on the Bollinger Overcrossing project. It's been quite some time since we talked about it, and I assure you the project is moving ahead. We've just finished 65% design and given comments back to the designer. And along with that package, we received the planting concepts for the landscaping and some renderings for the proposed lighting. So I'd like to show those to you and receive any comments that you have on them.
Good, we like this.
Let me just share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. So this is just a overview provided to us from the landscape architect on the proposed planting. And as you may recall from the nodes, those of you who were involved in that project, the landscape architects have gathered some inspiration from the community and the hills around us, the history of the Iron Horse Trail as a railroad. And they've tried to use that inspiration in what they were coming up with for this project. So these are really just some photographs of those elements. And some more, again, they're looking at the hills, the oaks that we have in those hills and the history of San Ramon with the pear orchards. And then they've also been inspired by the projects that we've done in the city. This is the planting concept for the now complete project that replaced the fountain at Al Costa and Bollinger. So they've incorporated similar planting schemes to try and get some synergy, as well as using the pallets from this project and the pallets from the Iron Horse corridor, and tried to combine those with the goals of this project to come up with landscaping that is appealing, colorful, and yet maintainable and drought tolerant. So the following slides just give you a plan view of what's going in with some idea of some of the plants. Unfortunately, we don't have a full-scale rendering, but hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of what's happening. So this is actually the northern approach on the bridge. So here's where the trail will be ramping up toward the bridge as people move south. There's going to be a couple of connection points. This is to Central Park. And there's going to be some nodes off to the side of the trail where people can stop and sit. And we've incorporated a shade structure, one on each side of the embankment. And then a great deal of planting on those embankments. This is the palette here. There's quite a lot of different plants being used. Again, this is predominantly a fairly drought tolerant, reasonable maintenance palette. There's a lot of flowering shrubs in here, as you'll see, and as I move through this. This is the second half of that northern end. So this is where the bridge structure itself will begin. And this is path down to Bollinger Road. This connects back towards City Hall. This is an existing path. And then there's this additional node that we're looking at that will be underneath the bridge and take advantage of the shade that'll be under there, as well as the fact that we have a junction to the trail. On the south side, you see a very similar palette. This is the ADA accessible path that will lead up to the bridge. There'll also be a shortcut of stairs. Again, one of those seating nodes. And another node with a shade structure. Actually, the shade structure is going to be over here. A couple more nodes. And this will be another connection point off to the BR1 area. Again, it's very typical of the plants that will be used. And I can give you a further view. There'll be some large grasses, some roses that tie into the planting that you see along Bollinger Canyon Road. And a lot of colorful shrubs. Quite a range in the palette. We haven't forgotten about trees and the desire for shade. So this is the planting that just emphasizes the trees. There's going to be oaks that will grow in over time and eventually provide shade along the entire trail. There's going to be several rows of the, I can't even pronounce this, Chitalpa. It's a flowering tree that's about 20 to 35 feet high. And it's really meant to gain some inspiration from the old pear orchards. So this will be in a couple of rows. These grow quite quickly, so we'll get some fairly quick shade in there while the oaks grow in. And for a little bit of variety, there's the trident maple that'll be down in here. So with regard to the nodes, again, this is meant to be a little bit similar to the existing nodes that we constructed along the Iron Horse Trail. Uses many of the same elements. And they've provided us with a rendering of what they're anticipating that this will look like. So there'll be areas where people can sit on the granite boulders or in saw top boulders. It'll have a DG surface, again, similar to those nodes, and there'll be planting around it. So that's the highlights of the landscaping. They've also provided some renderings for the lighting. So this is what we're anticipating the lighting will look like. It's going to be a highly efficient LED lighting that will be programmable and controllable from off-site. It primarily consists of uplighting onto the major bridge elements to highlight the bridge, but it's intended not to create a huge amount of, too much lighting and a bunch of light pollution. Looking along the path itself, be something like this, and we'll incorporate some lighting along the railing, which will serve both a decorative and a safety purpose. Just a couple more views of that. Not shown in this are some safety lights that will be located along the path because we intend the path to be accessible at all times. So there'll be additional lights near the bottom of the trail. And it's just the view from the street. And one last view. So that is where we are in terms of the landscaping and lighting. Again, the project itself is at 65% design for the structure. As you can see from these renderings, things haven't changed a great deal from what I showed in the past. But I know this is the first time you're seeing some of the landscaping and lighting features. So I'm happy to receive any comments that you have on that and incorporate them into the design as we can. Do you have any?
I'm sorry, comments or questions? Sridhar, you're the first one that unmuted. I can't see the rest of them, so please.
Yeah. Hi, Robin. Thank you for your presentation, and glad to hear that landscape consists of drought tolerant as well as native plants. I'm glad to hear, and also the bridge with LED lights. So definitely that's shows our focus on climate action plan. Coming to this, one question I have is regarding the maintenance of that landscape. Is it East Bay Parks is going to maintain it, or is it City V going to maintain this park?
The city will maintain this landscaping in this area.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yeah, will there be any LED lights on the large vertical structures that we can use like we have in the rotunda, different colors for different opportunities, Christmas season, Diwali, Valentine's Day, or any of that?
The tower itself will have minimal lighting. We considered that, and it's a fairly difficult element from the standpoint of maintenance to deal with some of that. However, we can achieve, I think, all of the effects that you're talking about with the LED lighting that will be shining up on the towers, and those should be programmable.
Okay, thank you.
Member Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks, Robin, for the update. I had a question on the shade structure. When you're talking a shade structure, are you talking about like a triangular sail or an arbor, or what exactly did you have in mind for that?
Well, we've left that up to the landscape architect for now to give us some ideas and see what they can come up with that complements the bridge itself and other elements on the trail. On the trail, we tend to have a canvas structures that are of lower life. But then again, what we're trying to achieve here mostly is going to be shade through the trees once they have time to grow in. So most of this planting is about letting it grow in. and give us that shade. So we'll see what they come up with. We left it a little bit open. It could be either of those elements that you discussed, but we are also concerned about the longevity and how it all fits together.
Yeah, and and on the shade trees, for example, it's hard to tell in the diagrams without kind of blowing them up and really taking a close look. But I think it goes without saying that you obviously got to take into consideration the angle of the sun predominantly in the afternoon and things like that. So making sure the trees are on the right side or the correct side,
That's a very good point. If you look at this on the northern edge, this is it's intrinsically a little bit difficult here because of the orientation of the bridge. We have very little room to play with on the western side. And naturally, it's desirable to get what you can in terms of shade over here. So it's more the afternoon shade as opposed to the morning shade. Not that that doesn't provide some benefit. And that again is a consideration with, well, let's at least make sure that we have some shaded nodes in here at all time. Okay.
And then the last thing on the, I'm just curious on the, you have in your picture some pictures of the old railroad and things like that. Is that what these seating areas are all about with the kind of the linear
exactly
things like that? That's the kind of, it's relative to kind of the historical context of Iron Horse Trail.
Yeah, and this is very similar to what the last landscape architect came up with working on the nodes, is they took this kind of idea and thought of it in terms of linear elements that are within the seating node, and thus you end up with these elements that allude to railroad ties adjacent to the path.
Yeah, great. All right, thanks, Robin.
Member Perkins and Zephyr.
Yeah, Robin, I really would like, even if they're fairly short and modest in size, really putting things on the west side that are going to provide shade. Elements on the east side don't provide any shade from about 11 a.m. on because of the angle of this thing. We've talked about this before, and I recognize that we can't, maybe there is no space to put big things on the west side because of some other interference. But if we can even get something small that's even 15 feet tall, that 15 feet is about 3 times the height of most people, that will provide shade. And so things that grow to 15 feet do provide shade onto the trail. So if you can convince them to find at least a few things to put on the west side, they will provide shade from about 11 a.m. on to the trail. Everything on the east side provides nothing after 11 a.m. And when is it hot out there? After 11 a.m. So see what you can do. All right.
We'll do that.
Okay, members Park.
Yeah, so just wanted to add on that trees and shade structure have been the biggest asks on that trail. So while we're doing this, hopefully, we can incorporate that ask as well as part of, enhancing the, Iron Horse Trail itself. The other question I had was that this is going to be a shared bridge. So is there a separation of bicycles and possibly scooters, which we might get on the bridge, and pedestrians, or how are we looking at kind of mobility on the bridge, if you will?
At the moment, we do not have any kind of fixed delineation. That doesn't mean that it's not something that can be added. Of course, there's questions out there about the future use of the corridor. So we wanted to leave open possibilities for change and adaptation of the surface, of whether it's desirable to have separated lanes or what happens if vehicles come on and those kinds of things. So it's not built into it, but nor is it prevented as something that can't be added into the pavement at any time as appropriate.
Yeah, my recommendation would be, right, Iron Horse Trail would take some time because it's already there and we have to make changes. If this is something we're building brand new and we can create some separation, I think it would be a good idea to, whether we want to call them different lanes or something, it's probably a good idea to think about that now and build for the future versus thinking, something might come from the trail 10 years later and then we'll incorporate it. So I would just be cognizant of that.
All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Perkins, you have a third shot?
Nope.
Okay. I would just say that the idea is, oops, wait a minute. Do we have any other panelists here? I saw you still have them up. I don't know why I have panelists too, but I don't see any hands there. Am I missing somebody or you just haven't put that before I open up public hearing? The comments I'd make, we've heard it a dozen times before about the west side and east side. And I could certainly concur with it. The problem's going to be where the utility lines underneath the ground. I mean, we're not gonna plant a tree and go down if Kinder Morgan has a line there. But hey, that's why we dump it on you guys. The other thing is, and we've always done this, and I'm surprised that it hasn't popped up before. Maybe I just haven't been to an ARB meeting in a while, but the Quercus agrifolia, we always changed to Quercus virginiana. For some reason, it just had less disease resistant or whatever. It asked that you take a look at that. I really like that the rose, the apple blossom. Unfortunately, it really probably the two best, not designs, but striking parts of our medians throughout the city are the red carpet roses and the white carpet roses. And I'd say take another look at that when you go out for it. I really like the idea of the lighting. I just don't know how it would work with the red and the green and the yellow lights that keep changing on us on those poles that we have out there for traffic. That one might be a little bit of something for you to take a look at, Robin, but that's something that CCTA can look at before they break ground next February or March. They are breaking ground, aren't they, in February or March?
That is the hope.
All right, who's in charge of that project? We'll have to go down and beat. Is it Ivan?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see him in a couple of weeks. Outside of that, we have one attendee before I open public comment. I have two hands up and I can't find them on here. Are there two panelists that want to speak?
No.
Okay, they just went down. All right, let's open up the public comments on this item. Call in user 1, you have the floor. This is on item 9.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Bartlett. Thank you so much for your presentation. You are always very meticulous and extremely thoughtful in your presentation. I really appreciate your efforts. I have two questions. The other day, when I drove to the city of San Francisco, I witnessed dusting and paint peeling on the bridge. And it prompted me to ask you, what is the maintenance procedure that comes with this bridge that we're also building? And specifically, I'm more curious about like the maintenance frequency and the readiness of obtaining the paint necessary, because there's a lot of trade problem. I don't know if the paint that is required is going to be coming from overseas or is it made in America. I also want to comment on the flowers I saw on the YouTube channel that you had selected are extremely beautiful. But when I think about the litter that I see on Albion, whenever I walk here, really saddens me that I foresee illegal dumping or litter that's going to uglify all those beautiful things you have chosen for us. How can we possibly prevent illegal dumping and littering? Thank you.
Okay, any other attendees wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Any last comments?
Mayor Hudson, you do have one last hand raised.
I do. I don't see it.
Wayne Mortensen has his hand raised right now.
Wow, Wayne, you don't, oh, there it is. It finally, okay, Wayne, go ahead. That is weird. I show one attendee with a hand up. Oh, there, she just took it down. Go ahead, Wayne. You gotta unmute. But it's a great speech, but you still have to unmute.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering on the trail if there will be lighting. I understand that there is a concern from perhaps neighbors that live close to the trail. They don't want lighting coming into their yard, but where possible, I would encourage lighting, whether it be solar or line powered. There should be lighting about 5:30 in the evening. It's going to start being dark. People want to use the trail for crime prevention, for public safety. There should be as much lighting as we can possibly put out there so that the trail can be used and people will feel comfortable in using it. Also regarding my email, letter, whatever, on the other item, I let my letter stand by itself. I'm just concerned about the plight of those citizens that cannot drive, either because they're elderly, handicapped, or whatever reason. They would like to live a life. And it would be nice if we could find a way to get them to shopping centers, to perhaps have coffee with friends, or to do their shopping, whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. We will look one last time. I don't see any hands. Thank you for catching that, Christina. I look, something wrong with my screen. We will close the public hearing on item 9.1. I'm going to give two quick answers. One was about the lighting, and the other one about the seniors that Wayne was talking about. The Blue Ribbon Task Force just completed their study, and the senior mobility is going to be a very big part of that. I'm on the task force. I'll keep you posted on where that goes. The lighting on the Iron Horse Trail, I bet the farm you will never see it. It's the licensing to maintain the Iron Horse Trail, other than the question that Mark Armstrong asked, is still with East Bay Regional Park District, and their signage makes it clear. They used to close a half hour, an hour after sundown. Now it's, I think they can go to as late as 10 o'clock. And I just don't think they're going to maintain it, but that's a different story. I think that there's so many different things now that might make it possible, but in all honesty, it's just easier to carry the flashlight. And I think you'll see that, at least in my lifetime. Maybe, who knows? We protest enough, they may do it. Scott, you're unmuted. You have something more before we move on? Okay. Nope.
I was going to say, sorry, Mayor, I was going to say, Robin mentioned there will be some lighting when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's on the bridge.
That's on the bridge, and maybe even into the landscaping that's there. But the Iron Horse Trails, I mean, just in San Ramon's got to be at least 5 miles long. And I know the other sections they're talking about, it's just, that's East Bay Regional Park District. They're not going to do it. I was on their citizen advisory committee for a while too. They're not going to do 31 miles of that. Anyway, let's move in. I'm sorry, was there more? See none. I'm looking one last time. Resolution 2021-116, adopting the Affordable Housing Trust Fund policy. This is Debbie Chamberlain's item.
It is. Thank you, Mayor Hudson. Good evening, Mayor Hudson and members of the council. Tonight, I'm here to present the draft Affordable Housing Trust Fund policy for your consideration. The policy is intended to implement a program, 14 of the housing element, to establish a policy and provide guidance for the use of the affordable housing in lieu fee, and is to ensure the timely construction of affordable housing units. Until recently, the San Ramon Housing Trust Fund has been used to implement programs to support affordable housing, along with staff time to implement programs. The fund has an available cash balance of about $4.3 million, with a fiscal year end projection about $4.5 million. With the Free Neighborhood Development 5 underway, staff anticipates the fund balance will grow to about $9 million by an additional $9 million by 2025. Future projects will contribute to the fund growth of approximately $1.35 million for the next 5 years. This policy has been brought forward due to recent actions that have occurred this past year. In March of this year, the council appropriated funds from the San Ramon Housing Fund to assist in the purchase of the townhome at Park Central. And then on May 5th, the Finance Committee authorized the city manager to provide a letter of support for the use of $4.5 million from the Housing Trust Fund in support of an application for tax-exempt bonds for the California Municipal Finance Agency to allow for the automatic allocation of low-income tax credits for consideration for the Aspenwood project. The project was not successful in securing funds in round 2, but they appear to be positioned well to secure funds in round 3. The policy has been drafted to be flexible to respond to a variety of opportunities to fund potential projects. Assuming funds may be limited in the future, the policy addresses construction of units and preservation of at-risk units to ensure the efficient use of funds. At this time, rental assistance is not an eligible use of funds. In addition to identifying the eligible use of funds, the policy establishes loan terms, an application process, and a maximum subsidy per unit. The Housing Advisory Committee met on October 1st and moved the policy to the Policy Committee and recommended changes to the loan term. We had some duplicative terms that we removed and encouraged the use of funds for nonprofit and diversity in contracting for construction. On October 4th, the Policy Committee reviewed the recommendation from HAC and supported their recommendations with the following modifications, which have been redlined in your packet tonight. Loans are to be repaid as soon as the project secures permanent financing at construction loan closing, or 15 years is the change at the discretion of the council. The policy does state that loans carry an interest rate of a minimum of 3%. We've added some flexibility that the council may set an alternative interest rate. The one point that we brought for discussion is the committee could not come to consensus if the loan origination fee should be charged. The city would be responsible for preparation of loan documents, and Section 4 of the policy requires the cost to prepare those loan documents be borne by the applicant. The intent is to cover staff costs in preparation of loan documents. If an outside lender was used to prepare the loan documents, an industry standard loan origination fee would be charged, so staff is seeking some direction on this requirement. Additionally, staff has made some changes to protect sensitive financial information and remove those repetitive terms that I mentioned previously, and those are identified as track changes in your packet tonight. Our recommendation is that you receive the presentation, discuss, and if appropriate, adopt the resolution approving the policy. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, this one I think was Mark Armstrong and I. 20 meetings that they just keep running on, don't they, Mark? You know, I've had a lot of thought about this. Let me just address the loan origination fee and then let people jump in. And Mark, you can give your points too. See, I don't have a problem with a loan. In fact, I think there should be a loan origination fee. Where I think I didn't make myself clear is I think this is a very good carrot to get refinancing sooner than later. I was really concerned about carrying something for 15 years, and we were even talking about going lower than the 3%. I guess I spent too much time at the 10, 12, 15% interest rates and overriding deeds of trust, et cetera, and I don't want to see it. But I think that doing the loan origination fee up front and giving the city manager and his team the ability to rebate it back as we're refinancing is a good strategy, but I'm not going to live or die on it. Mark, your points.
Well, I got a question for Debbie. I didn't ask it during the policy committee meeting, but the 1.35 million, is that in addition to the FRIA, the expected FRIA funds that were anticipated to get that 9 million? Or is that just the next 5 years, we're going to get 1.3 and that includes FRIA?
No, the 1.3 is, so every year for the budget process, we do 5-year projections as to development activity. And so we look to commercial projects and residential projects that may come online and calculate our fund balances. So based on how we've looked at our 5-year projections, that is a rough anticipation of what may come in addition to the 9 million from FRIA. But I want to stress it's a rough anticipation. Some of those projects are in the pipeline that we anticipate will be approved and move forward. And some have been approved and been sitting for a while. So in the numbers that we look at right now, while they're in the back of our mind, I don't put them into the hard calculation because, as we know with FRIA, they are under construction right now, and there's a commitment for those funds to be paid.
Okay. All right. Thanks. You know, since the policy committee meeting, you know, I've been thinking about this thing, and you know, I guess I do, you know, I've got some concerns about it, obviously, you know, concerns about potentially loaning out this money. The grant, I understand, but the loan piece of it, you know, might cause us to use our general fund if we don't get those additional housing funds that we're anticipating, or if the economy goes south on us. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. And then I'm not sure I fully understood what happens if we provide a loan, the city provides a loan, and a developer fails. Are there consequences for the developer? Is there any kind of collateral? Is there, you know, how is the city potentially going to be named as a beneficiary through some insurance document or something like that? It just seems like, you know, we're not a lender, but if we do lend money, what happens if things don't go as anticipated? Are we assuming too much risk?
Well, so the policy is very flexible. So, you know, the loan amounts will be set on a case-by-case basis. And so the finance committee or the policy committee and the council will evaluate each loan that comes forward and determine how much risk is present and if the fund balance can cover that. There is the potential, depending on the loan that may be given, that there could be a general fund impact. And then we have to, you know, have in the back of their minds be concerned about the reserve policy that we have in place also. So the loans are meant to be on a case-by-case basis. I know we did discuss the potential for the loan for Aspenwood, which is, you know, sort of driving some of this discussion, but, you know, that is one opportunity in many that may come forward. And so we really want to focus the policy on, you know, more of a global rather than a specific project, if that makes sense to you. And on the collateral side, you know, there could be liens against the property, but that's hard to say if those loans, if there was a loss, if we would recover those funds. But maybe Martin may have something else he can add on that aspect to that.
How big was that bus, Martin?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the only comment I had. I guess I'm just not sure I'm as ready as I was after the policy committee meeting to kind of move this thing along, because I am concerned about that risk. And is there anything else we can do to kind of look out for the city's interest if conditions change or a developer fails?
I think we have to look at each of these on a case-by-case basis and try to assess the risk as the opportunities come up. You know, if we're a lender, for example, we face the same risks as any lender, and there might be opportunities to, you know, have the property itself put up. Or something, or have collateral or something along those lines. But again, we'd have to look at that and recognize that we would likely not be the priority lender in this situation. So and the fact that these may have some risk associated with them are precisely the reason why the developer may be having trouble getting private money. So we need to recognize that.
And just to the point you made, I mean, the city to me is not a lender, you know, at least that's not what our primary job is, you know, we're not lenders. So I do think it would be prudent to kind of enlist the assistance of somebody to help us in that regard, unless we do have the technical capability on the staff to draw up these types of technical loan documents that are needed for something like this.
The city manager has a comment too.
Yeah, thank you. So just to reiterate, and I think Martin covered it, but we do have the policy is written broadly, and it's clear just by what you've the points you've brought up, Council Member Armstrong, that we really can't address the specifics of any one project because they're often very different. And so the two things that I hear that I believe helps address it is, one is that's what the housing funds that we collect are for, is to promote affordable housing. So the funds that we do have in the accounts, right, as they come in, and how the council determines how they would like to distribute those funds in a way to promote that housing, such as, if you remember, as Debbie mentioned, our original loan to Aspen Woods was specifically to promote, I think it was 15 units of the affordable housing, and to help cover the impact fees originally as a loan in order for them to get through the construction. That became a problem just due to COVID and the environment. And so there'll be future projects, and it's such a wide range from maybe a smaller $1 to $2 million loan to do similar to Aspen Woods, all the way up to what is likely to be presented to the council on a project basis coming, I believe, next week or the week after, regarding a much, much larger contribution in order to facilitate a very large affordable project. So one is the money that we have in the housing fund and how to apply it in the loan. The other is, if there's not money in the housing fund, or there's not enough in that fund, is the council open to considering future proceeds? And that's when Debbie, that's mentioned, that's the potential impact to the general fund, right? Because if those future proceeds don't come in on time, and the city has made an obligation to pay using housing funds, then it depends on how that is structured. The city might be on the hook until those housing funds come in. And so the only other true source of revenue, or for us as funds, is to use the general fund to cover that until the housing funds come in. And that creates questions that the council would have to consider, given that the general fund is what we use for all other city services. So the main issue for this broad policy is that it does cover, in general, most of these items. However, it's going to have to come to the council on each of these individual bases, so we can really, the council has the opportunity to really vet each project to determine if they want to do that.
Yeah, well, that was kind of exactly my point, is the sort of the Robin Peter pay Paul kind of thing, that we would have to potentially tap into the general fund, which is we've got to meet our regular obligations and our services, and our keeping our public works and our police and our all those other things going. And if we don't get those funds that we're banking on to come in on time that we're expecting them, then that's the risk we're talking about, assuming is potentially dipping into the general fund.
And I think any loan we bring forward, we can demonstrate the fund balance through the loan, repayment, basically the how much is loaned out and what funds are coming in too. So the goal would be to maintain a positive fund balance, because we do have staff time annually that does come out of that fund that covers the housing programs and community development. So there are some costs that are already tapped from that fund, but we could also be showing a fund balance of how we can maintain a positive balance throughout the loans that we are committing to in the future also.
You good,
Okay,
Mark?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would just tell you, we've been juggling like this for 30 years that I know, but Sridhar Barose, you have a comment.
Yeah, I have a question. I say that this is about loan terms on the fund side, but maybe this is a little off-topic question. So as loan providers, we are providing loan, right? So do we get to say who are going to be the beneficiaries in this case? Like, for example, our school teachers take the priority, or our city employees, or do we have any say in this loan terms?
Well, presently, the policy is structured to be loaning to projects that provide affordable housing to the city. And so it could be for-profit and nonprofit builders. So that's the goal that we're discussing in the policy tonight. We have a fund balance that's growing, and we need to find ways to use that fund balance to support the construction of affordable housing. And so primarily it would be for supporting opportunities through grants or tax-exempt bonds to provide that housing for the city. So I don't see it to a specific individual, but to a project. We do have some small grants that we do through our Building and Safety Services Department division that help to support home maintenance. We have not done those in a little while, but the primary goal would be to support the construction of affordable housing units. That's what the fund is required to do.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Supporting the affordable housing is, it's, I think, responsibility of us to make sure that happens. But is there any reason that we cannot add, or is it something that restricts us from making that as part of the priority within the loan terms?
So restate your request, I'm sorry, adding use of for residents or for employees or?
For the priority list, like when we are giving the loan terms, can we say that whatever the affordable housing, the first priority should go to the teachers or city employees and or PD? That's the priority that should go for. And so then goes to the next, like that. Can we put that as part of our loan terms?
Well, you're talking about priority preference. And so those are usually left to the programs that are put in place for the project that's coming forward. So like for the city of San Ramon, while we can offer, if you're a preference, I believe, to be a school teacher, but we can't offer you a preference if you live in the city. So it really depends on the program and how it's established. And so that's really would be separate from this policy.
Okay. So that we cannot add as a part of the loan terms, you're saying?
That I would consider the priority preference to be a separate element aside from this policy.
I might also add to that in that a lot of these projects involve not just the city, but private lenders as well, who are participating in the financing of these projects. And they tend to look at these types of restrictions a little bit more critically than the city does. So we would have to look at these on a case-by-case basis to make sure that we're not jeopardizing the developer's opportunity to get other funding sources for their project.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, we have one attendee that wants to speak, and then we could go back to comments afterwards. Let's bring in call in user 1. And this is on item 10.1. And you're on mute. Now you're good.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I don't have any more $2,500 to file appeal. So I just want to put everything on the record. I have heard Ms. Chamberlain present this issue at least in 2 other committee meetings. And for the very applicant that is in this pipeline right now, he seems to be okay with me. So it is good idea that this project is proposed case by case. However, with my experience with the attorney's office and the fact that we danced around for Sandbox VR by exempting them from D430, I really don't feel comfortable. I feel at this point, this issue should go back to policy and hash out a little bit more carefully, specifically default. What happens when they default? That's a very important question. I don't see any good solution that was offered from the conversation just now. How about proposing that they put down some sort of down payment as a collateral? What about background checking prior to? One of the reason why I had to file Sandbox VR appeal was that I felt, their equipment were not properly vetted. Here, I don't know how Ms. Kimberlin's department or Mr. License department are going to vet the developer. If you default on millions, it's going to be extremely serious for our city, just like what Ms. Councilmember Armstrong just said. We can even pay police. We can pay this, city employees. Please do not vote something just because you feel you have to. If it's not vetted completely enough, you should, put it back in the pipeline and then maybe vote later. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying we need to be careful because it's many, many, many people's lives, their jobs on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? Seeing none, we will close the public comment on matters before the council. Let me just chime in with something. First of all, these people are going to put money down. There is going to be money on it. If they default on the loan, there's going to be, I'm sure, deeds of trust and everything else that you have to put on the property. I don't know if you've ever, I've had property and foreclosed on it, and it's not what I would call a risk unless you're doing 98, 99, or even 95% financing total. These are the kind of things that get vetted out before you do it for each one of these policies. What we're really looking at here is the question of why do we do it at all? And you're going to find out that all the legislation I'm seeing, that if you take a 100% affordable housing unit project, you better have a great reason not to help them make this deal happen, because we're going to get hit with 5,000 units. Okay, let's start off with Vice Mayor Perkins, because his hand is going up and down and jumping around, and your comments.
I think Mark's comments on collateral and vetting, each opportunity has its own risks and will have its own opportunities. And this policy puts in place some structures so that potential borrowers and developers have something that they can look at and say, well, do I qualify or don't I qualify? Can I ask or should I not ask? But because each activity, each loan will be unique and separate, we will have a chance to say, gee, what is the collateral for this loan? What are you putting up? What is the risks involved? And so I'm very much in favor of having a policy. I think that there was a good amount of time spent on it. I do believe that we do need to charge something in the way of document fees or application fee. There are costs incurred by the city in doing those things, and we need to recover those through maybe that's rolled into the loan as well. But I think we need to move forward with this, and this is not a document that is targeted for one project. This is for multiple projects going into the future. And if we have millions of dollars that we can use to help make our arena numbers, then this is an opportunity for us. We lost it when they ruined redevelopment and we had that 20% fund. And, you know, Dave, you know this even better than I. There was a source of funds. And then when they ruined the source of funds, there's a housing crisis. I wonder if there's a connection between the two. Who knew that when you take away that 20%, that it would in fact dry up the housing money that we had to work with? I think we should move forward with this, and I believe we should include document fees or application fees or whatever we want to call it. Thank you.
I think you're on the right track. Sabina Zafar.
Yes, so I also agree that we should have a policy in place because I think it adds some method to the madness, if you will. My only concern is about the loan requirements. We're becoming a lender. Is this something we've vetted out with what this industry standard is, or how have we come up with the loan terms? That would be my only thing. And if the interest rates change and things like that, do the loan terms shift? And I'm not a loan expert, and so I don't want to, kind of have that charge personally.
Yeah, so in the policy, we have a minimum of 3%. And so the council is free to adjust the term if they feel they should be paying a market rate. We also have, and where the council can set an alternative rate, and the council will set the term on these loans. Now, some very long-term loans for larger projects may have a lower interest rate in order to qualify for a tax-exempt bond, for example. And so really, as we've been discussing tonight, the loan rate and the terms are really going to be on a case-by-case basis, depending on the project and the asks that they are requesting from the city. So the policy is flexible to really be unique to each project that we may consider for a loan from the fund.
So are we putting, can we put in something around the market rate or the market loan? Like, Dave mentioned earlier, they've been 10% at one point. And, that right now we're at historic low rates as well. So making sure that those are considered. Do we have that somewhere? Or am I missing it?
I just pulled it. See, okay, I'm not, okay. So I got my screen blocked. So I just pulled it up to see. So we have a minimum of 3% per annum, and then for a maximum amount equal to the number of units multiplied. But the council could go to the market rate if they chose to, and there's no restrictions on that. It's a minimum of 3%, but we have the alternative, like I said, rate that can be set lower or higher than the 3%. So it's flexible for you to make that choice at the time.
Yeah, and that flexibility bothers me a little bit as well, because it could be a council 20 years later, and I don't know. I'm just I would love to see something which says, based on what the market rates are and doing a survey of the market or something like that. So it sounds, so that we're going with what's out there, right? Instead of any council member saying, I feel like this is the rate we should just go with, and everybody voting on that rate kind of thing. I do want it to be some data driven in there, saying, yeah, we're actually using, some data from the market to set this and recommend this rate.
City manager's hand went up quick on that one. And he's muted, but it was a great speech.
He agrees.
I just like to point out there's a lot of good discussion. The intent of these funds, the city is not a loan agency. That's not the intent of these funds are to promote affordable housing in the community. And so the council is not, we're not looking to be necessarily competitive in a loan market scenario here. What we're trying to do is help builders promote affordable housing construction. And so that very well could be a lower than what maybe a competitive market would supply or offer, but the point of it is to make it to allow developers to be able to pencil out these affordable projects. And so the strength of this policy, though it sets this number at 3% based on some of the other policies we've seen in the area, it does give the council that flexibility for each project to then consider this, because the goal is not necessarily capitalizing on a loan and getting a loan return for the money. The goal is to, use the affordable housing funds to get that stuff constructed. So that's the flexibility. I do agree with your concerns, council members afar, but the policy is broad enough. And no, it does not lock a council in, but if you did lock a council in, then you do lose a lot of the flexibility that you may need when you're considering these projects as they come before you. And so I don't think there's really a way to lock them in and then also have flexibility. And I think Martin wanted to also mention something.
I think you just about covered it. I was basically just going to make the same point that essentially the purpose is going, or the rate is probably going to be driven not by our numbers or the market, but the numbers that the developer brings to us, showing what their cash flows are going to be, and how our interest rates and how our terms might have to be shoehorned into their business plan.
I think there's something that's missed here too, and we've said it a couple times, but this is really the focus. This particular item, even though we're doing this as a policy, is about a developer who in this round of this 100% affordable housing special little deal is quite possibly going to get funding for this deal, 100% affordable housing. This city just had a tremendous jump in numbers for regional housing needs allocation. You're not going to get these things popping up every day. So you take fees that people paid into this fund in lieu fees to do this kind of affordable housing, and we are in essence just determining what is the value of our money that we're spending to make an affordable housing project. Now, on the other end, what we're hearing a lot of is the same thing you hear on every single real estate transaction. Even if they put 50% down, people are worried about it. What if this thing goes under? Well, what will likely happen if it gets into foreclosure is the same thing we did at MUDS. We went down there and we bought it. It cost us a penny over what was due. And these are the kind of things that you deal with when they come up. We have been putting money into affordable housing projects from before I was on planning commission. I mean, I want the Wayne Bennett special down there in Sunny Glen. And sometimes they're looked at as good deals, sometimes they're not. But in the end, the state is not going to back off of these RHNA numbers. I've listened to every appeal and every one of them is being denied. And if anything, our number is going to go up. But it looks like we have one step towards a solution, another one probably trying to get the same kind of deal. And it's whether or not we feel when it comes before us that this is going to be a step in the right direction. So we do have another shot at it. Sridhar, you have coming.
Yeah, focusing on getting affordable housing within the city, I think I really like this flexibility of this policy, and also to keep it easy for the developers or who are the loan requester, so that we can encourage them to reach out to city for funding for their affordable housing. And also this helps us with the RHNA numbers, right, as Mayor said. So with that, and also we are not focused too much on generating revenue on that loans, but definitely we want to get more attention from the developers to build affordable housing within the city, which is very much needed. So that's the reason I like this policy.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think a policy is needed. I said that last time as well at the policy committee meeting. And I do think it does need to be broad. I think this is broad enough to be applicable to future projects. But what I'm hearing is that, okay, the loan terms are going to be considered case by case. The lenders are going to be, or I'm sorry, not the lender, but the borrower is going to be considered on a case by case basis. And there shouldn't be an assumption as we go through that process and the council reviews these different projects that any particular case is going to be approved if the council determines there might be too much risk. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
It's okay. We got a thumbs up from the vice mayor, so I guess you're correct. Just too lazy to hit the mute button. Any further discussion before I open this up to the any public comments on this? I don't see any yet. Is there anyone in the public? Public comment is open who wishes to discuss this. Or did I do that already? Has it been that long of a day?
I think
no, I haven't.
You did do that already.
I did. It's been that long of a day, and tomorrow it starts again. Okay, public comment is closed. You've already spoken. The question before us is anybody ready to approve resolution 2021-116?
So moved.
Motion Perkins.
Second.
Second Zafar. Any further discussion? Have we beat it to death? We have. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrows,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson.
Yes, 5-0. Okay, moving on to 10.2. This is consideration of direction to staff regarding filling the vacancy on the Parks and Community Service Commission. I say we let Sridhar pick them. What do you want to do? Who's got the staff report on this?
I do.
Okay, Christina, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. So tonight we're looking for direction from the council to fill a vacancy on the Parks and Community Services Commission. Unfortunately, Commissioner Scott Roberts did resign from the commission as of September 20th, 2021. He still does have some time on his term, and it's set to expire June 2023. So we do have 7 active applications on file for the commission. The city council has interviewed this group of individuals twice already in a candidate forums type interview on February 22nd and June 21st. And the recordings of those interviews can be found on the city's YouTube channel. So tonight, staff is asking for direction. Would you like to interview the 7 candidates again, or would you like to appoint by application, which I would bring forward at a future council meeting?
Oh, look at all the volunteers to chime in on that one. Okay, yeah. Sabina Zafar jumps out there first. Go ahead. What should we do, Sabina?
So, I mean, I think we have the application, we can listen to them, but since then there might be other people who are interested. And I don't want to assume that, there's not going to be other people that apply. So I want to keep that in mind with whatever decision we make. And maybe some of them have had life changes as well and decide they don't want to, they don't want to apply anymore. So it might be a good idea to just get in fresh interest, if you will, or application, however we want to do it. And then we can maybe perhaps say those that have already interviewed, we can watch their interviews, or we do the whole panel again. But I do want to give an opportunity to anybody new who may have had interest now, since we last interviewed, to be able to apply.
That makes too much sense. Councilmember Armstrong.
Well, I have to agree. I reluctantly agree.
That's 3 of us. Who else wants?
We want to invite public participation, and we want everyone who wants to be involved. And there may have been some other people that didn't have the opportunity before and now have the opportunity to be a part of this process and be on this commission. So even though I think we're pretty familiar with the 7 candidates, that we're talking about, I think we do need to open it up and be fair to all, even if that means maybe a new process. Maybe it's not the same old candidate form that we did before, asking questions. Maybe it's, we have a different way of determining who might be the best candidate. So it's just not the same old thing with those other 7 people.
And I think a lot of it's going to depend on, nobody but the 7 people apply. Sridhar, you were on Parks. What should we do?
So I don't want to repeat whatever Sabina and Mark mentioned. So it's the same line. I agree with their idea that definitely we need to open for new applicants. But the interview process wise, we need to see if we can do based on number of applicants. If applicants are limited, I think maybe we can do interview for the new applicants and watch the recordings from the old applicants. So we can, based on number of applicants, I think we can figure out that, or maybe even not with the number of applicants, but maybe we can come back on the whether we can go for a full interview or not for all the candidates. But then I do agree that we need to open for all new applicants.
Well, let me make a suggestion before Vice Mayor Perkins chimes in. There's 6 or 7 of these things. I forgot how many you said, City Clerk. I say we send it back to them, let them know that they are entered, that their applications have been accepted. If they want to send something more in, so be it. And we set up what do we do? 2 weeks for this or a week? I can't remember. 10 days, whatever it is.
Generally, we recruit for commissions in about 3 weeks time, 2 to 3 weeks.
I hate to leave that darn thing open that long. I know it's a good point that you brought it up, but they only do meet once a month, so they're going to miss one more meeting. If I'm kind of reading this right, they may even be in by the time we do it. The real problem is going to be trying to get re-interviews, but if 2 people more apply, the other 7 may just say, no, my application's in, go with it. I think it's a tremendous advantage for these people that have interviewed twice before. I will flat out tell you, it made a difference with me and Partha. I knew who he was, and it's just the nature of the beast. You try, and I don't think I got on planning till the 3rd or 4th time. And then just everybody didn't realize how bad of a candidate I was. My feeling is that it's a policy issue, it's a protocol issue, and you got to go out. If it's 3 weeks, how do you feel about that? Does it have to be 3? Should it be 2? What are your feelings? Yeah, don't anybody jump out there at once. Scott, you're on mute.
I'm going to be unavailable from, I want to say November. I'm looking it up right now. November 4th through November 8th. That's a Thursday through Monday. So, but I don't think that should hamper this too badly. That's a Thursday, Friday, and a Monday.
I repeat, me too. It does hamper it.
Okay, good. So
but that's 3 weeks then. Okay, how do you feel about 3 weeks, the other 3 council members? Is that the right time frame it was before? Yep, Veros.
Yeah, have the application period for 3 weeks, and then we'll schedule the interviews.
That sound about right to you, Sridhar?
Yeah, that sounds good. 3 weeks.
Mark?
Yeah, it works.
Sabina?
Yeah, works for me. And then another recommendation is, since this is a Parks Commission interview, we can interview them in person in the park as well. And that way we won't have to wear masks and do the old style interview one by one. Just saying.
Okay, so it sounds like you're going to put it out for 3 weeks, and I would just, unless somebody wants to say no, I would send it back, or the 6 or 7 people, I forget what you said, I would tell them they're in unless they don't want to be in. So they don't have to fill out another thing or whatever. They have it. If they want to do something additional, they can. But that's my own personal feeling on it. Scott, you're unmuted. How do you feel?
I agree.
Mark? Sabina? Okay. make it easy on you, and then they know that they'll probably have to be 3 weeks from now. Just let them know what's going on and they're still in, because it was so close. And if there's something wrong with that, Martin hasn't come off of mute, so I guess I'm okay to, yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so you have direction on that, Christina? You don't need any more?
I do, but you do have one public comment request.
Where? Oh, okay. Gosh, why am I so slow getting that darn thing? Call in user 1, you have the floor. Public comment is open.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so from my experience with IDAC and EDAC, I request the council members to please ask the applicants to disclose their club or activist group affiliation so that we know if they are applying for the good of the city or their own self-interest. I really feel that, it's probably better to have a vacancy than to have people who are trying to infiltrate and influence for their own self-interest or are paid to influence for an organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any cards for public comment on this item?
No, we did not receive any.
Okay, public comment is closed. We've given direction. We've beaten it to death. There's going to be 6 or 7 people getting notices and 3 weeks for others to chime in. We are now at the highlight of the evening. These are times for the city manager's comments.
All right, thank you. So we do have a joint city council planning commission workshop next week. It'll be based on the general plan update, and we encourage a lot of involvement and public participation in that process. We're especially looking for comments regarding our housing element update because that's the hot topic. Also, along those lines, there is a survey out right now regarding the general plan update. That will be closing at the end of October. So if you have not participated in that survey, please log on to plansanramon.ca and share your comments with the city. We also received a grant for $377,000. It's a federal, comes from federal funding, the congestion mitigation air quality, and is designed to provide funding for improvements at our shared mobility hubs and transit centers. San Ramon is the first city in Contra Costa County to receive these funds from this new funding source. So we're excited about this. We'll be purchasing some electronic message boards at the bus bays and a couple bike fix stations, as well as enhancing our ADA elements around there. And then also, we also have Culture in the Community coming up on Sunday, the 17th from 10 to 2. So we hope a lot of folks will come out and enjoy that. And also our very popular Scarecrow Scavenger Hunt that was a product of Parks and Community Services brilliance at the time when we had COVID and nobody could get around. They created the scavenger hunt, and it was so popular, it's now going to likely be a continuing event. So that's it for me, and turn it back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
You have a public comment.
Yeah, I'm just, is this public comment on the city count or city manager's comments? Bring her in. Call in user 1. You have comments on the city manager's comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
City manager, I want to thank you for inviting the city to participate in the general plan. I think it's very important for our city to be to remain democratic. That it's very important to have participation of the public. I've always been very generous with my time, I suppose, to try to participate and to offer my perspective as a public. However, after this appeal, I really feel that it's very discouraging that the city is charging so much. You have to understand, usually the public, when they speak, we don't really get answers. We're like nobody. We can ask questions, give comments, nobody really cares. So then it's very discouraging when that's how we're treated. And here you are trying your best, trying to get people to participate. So I really feel that if it's possible at all, that, you know, comments really should be, questions should be answered. Comments should be taken into consideration to minimize appeal. Appeal fee should not be marked at $2,500. It's a deposit, not a fee. You should consider like a reasonable hourly rate to deduct for the city's time and then give back what is the differential to me, someone like me. Thank you. Because, you know, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Those $2,500 is like my allowance. I really resent that you guys kept them. Thank you.
Okay, that's city manager's comments. We'll move on to public comment. If you have not previously spoken under public comment, that's item 4. Please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or *9 on your telephone when it's your turn to talk, and call upon your name if provided. We will, and remarks should be about 3 minutes or less. The clock will be running on the Zoom screen. Call in user 1. Are you going to speak in public comment again?
She did speak under item 4
yeah.
under public comment.
Okay, I think she just hasn't reduced or moved her hand down. So let's move on. Anyone else on public comment wishing to speak? There are 8 attendees. I don't see anyone else. Let's move to city council members and mayor comments. Oh, Vice Mayor Perkins, I'm sorry. I'm looking the other way.
Yep. Went to the Library Foundation. They meet monthly, and they had a very successful book sale, and they are planning on having additional small focused book sales, like one around Halloween that'll be mysteries. They'll be selling mysteries for nominal fee, and then they're going to have other books that are going to be sold for 50 cents each as potential Christmas presents. So they have some mini focused book sales planning. Their bank account is in pretty good shape. They voted to authorize $300 for some hanging hardware used for hanging art in the library that Brad Morris brought to their attention. So good job, Brad. He convinced them that that was a good use of their money. They also are looking for ways to cooperate with the other foundations, Historic Foundation, Senior Foundation, Art Foundation, at city events to reduce some of the demands on people's time, but they will jointly manage an information table for going forward. So they've already got an arrangement, I believe, with the Art Foundation going forward. So that's my report from the Library Foundation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Who is next? I know there's a volunteer out here somewhere. Sabina.
All right. So we had myself and Councilmember Mark Armstrong, we had a liaison meeting with the Dublin San Ramon Water District after 11 or 12 years. They had this liaison meeting. It was very informative though. And one of the things they highlighted was, of course, we are in a drought right now, and they're asking residents to have 50% mandatory water conservation. And for those who don't know, we have the Dublin San Ramon Water District that supplies water to the Doherty Valley area. And then we have East Baymont, which supplies water to the rest of San Ramon. And so what they're also asking is that you water your lawns 3 non-consecutive days a week between November 1st and February 28th as well. I don't know if East Baymont has given similar directions to residents, but I think this is something which we as a city should also support. and make sure, I think Stephen was going to get the word out as well so that people are aware that there is this requirement for mandatory conservation of water because we are in a drought year. There were several events that happened in the last couple of weeks. Durga Puja was this past weekend. So everybody who was celebrating a happy Navratri, I hope I'm saying that right, to you, great event, 3-day festival. What I loved this time around was that they put up the tents really close to Bollinger. And so it brought in a lot more people just walking by and coming and, attending the event. And there was also Oktoberfest at the farm the past weekend, which was, I heard, really well attended too. So, people are looking to do things in San Ramon, and, having an event every weekend has been really great for people to be able to come and join. There's also an art exhibit in City Hall, which I was able to see. Again, we have rotating art exhibits, and this one was where Mark Stephenson, really interesting, which is on display right now in City Council. So if you do get an opportunity, walk by and see our art gallery, City Council being one of them. I think the third thing that I wanted to talk about was, I know the climate emergency declaration has come up a few times. I've talked about it in the past, and it might be a good idea for us as a council to see if this is something we want to look at. Very few cities so far have done it. And what it really helps us with is to kind of commit to what we're already doing in terms of climate action plan and climate emergency, and help us articulate some of the things that we are doing in order to move towards a climate, a climate emergency. And San Francisco has declared it. So has Hayward in the Bay Area, and Chico is one of the cities that has done a climate emergency. It is, slowly a lot of cities are declaring climate emergency so that they can have specific goals. Obviously, this would be something that the council, us as a council as a whole would want to support. So perhaps agendizing it and putting it on our next agenda item and talking about it might be a good idea. So that's my ask.
Okay, Mark or Sridhar?
Sure, I'll go next.
And then Vice Mayor Perkins again. Get shot too.
Back on the 4th, I attended the Senior Advisory Committee meeting, and one of the main agenda item was to talk about doing an updated senior needs assessment. The last one they'd done was prior to kind of COVID. And so this assessment is to take a look at the different physical and emotional and service needs of the 55 and older community. And they want to tie these potential needs, senior needs, into the overall Parks Master Plan. Some of the comments that came from seniors included providing some more additional information on churches, maybe adding a comment section where they can list individual improvements that might be needed for seniors, and then a section to comment on things like bingo and socialization, that sort of thing. Also got the usual program updates from the staff, some trip updates. They talked about the resource fair back on the 17th, where they had over 250 people attend. Probably pushed that over 300 with the additional with the vendors. They talked about the Senior Foundation sponsoring Bingo is Back, which had about 80 participants, a very successful event, and then gave some updates on facility usage, which from all indications, things are starting to increase now with facility usage and rentals and that sort of thing. So good progress there. So other than that, I was not able to attend the Marin Clean Energy retreat that was last week due to a scheduling conflict, and don't know if Vice Mayor Perkins might have some information on that, but I've got nothing to report on that.
Okay, Councilmember Barroso, and then Vice Mayor Perkins for round two.
Yeah, there, as Councilmember Jafar said, there are a lot of events going on, especially festival events. Nice to see council members at many of you at Agumani Durga Puja. It's a well-attended event. It's almost like next to our Art and Wind Festival. So nice seeing you all. And also good to see you at our Oktoberfest. It was also very well attended. It's a huge crowd based on my parking, not getting parking any nearby parking slot. So that says definitely it's well attended crowd. On upcoming events on October 23rd, we have a San Ramon Diwali Festival event at Bella Vista. I'll share that information pretty soon and with the council and everyone. And also looking forward to see you all on October 17th at our Culture and Community event at San Ramon Community Center. So that's pretty much my comments.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Perkins? Then I'll have some comments and we'll go to the
interest in a climate emergency, I believe is probably universal among the council, but I think it should go to policy first.
That was quick. Okay. Now I would say that, well, let me start it off this way. I had a nice weekend reading this appeal and council and 5 or 6 other appeals that I'll be looking at tomorrow. And they're all coming down pretty much the same way that, yeah, it's a large number. You are going to do it. You can approve it or the state will approve it. When I got tired of reading the appeals for a minute because I had a headache, I would go over to Agumon. I must have made 7 or 8 trips over there. No doubt about it. San Ramon is now Party City. We're going to have something every week. We just can't get enough of it. As the city manager says, no, you're not. But I wanted to, you know, first of all, I mean, it sounds great to come up here and say, oh, we're going to do stuff for the air and it's an emergency and it's an urgency. But what's missing here is that we are doing it. I don't know how to tell you this, folks, that we have been a part of Diesel Free in 33 since its inception in 2018. I mean, actually, I think Sabina, you joined in before you were even elected. And so did Aparna. This is an urgency item that we are working at. The black carbon issue, I think this is the second time I told this lady, that's 12 years old. We went after that at the Air District like it was the single most important thing, because it was the single most important thing we do. That's what Diesel Free in 33 was about. The electric vehicles are not the only answer. We are working on hydrogen. There are 2 refineries that have shut down to do biofuel that would very much clean up what they're putting in the air. And Chevron's talking about doing green hydrogen that they have now. And the Air District just passed a resolution to decarbonize aviation fuel. There's constantly something going on. Methane is the strongest rule in the nation that we are doing. That's short-lived. The thing that we're not doing enough on is particulate matter. These fires are the #2 cause of climate change in the Bay Area. #1 cause of health effect. And as far as sitting here saying, when are we going to do something or we need to do something, San Ramon is a leader. I could go on for an hour about this, but the reality is this is a regional issue that you need to get behind. Bay Area Air Quality Management District for stationary sources and a California Air Resource Board for mobile sources. But every week, I'm sure we'll keep bringing this up, and it is not the issue that I think we should be looking at unless you're going to do it on a regional level. San Ramon is in a care air risk evaluation. That puts us in line to get funds ahead of other people. It is a episodic zone, but it has worked. And it's one of the reasons you saw tonight that we got money for a mobility source. Mobility is a big part of reducing the emissions. The 2 biggest parts are transportation sector and what Scott Perkins is working on with marine clean energy. Electrical and transportation are 2/3 of it. So when you look at these arena appeals and the numbers we were complaining about tonight, and you completely ignore it for air quality, let me remind you, SB 375 is a mandatory part of climate change. That's why we're doing it. So I'm not as excited about doing it. I'd much rather see the people that keep coming in here actually go to where they should be, which is listening to the air district, because we're doing stuff every month and it seems to not be sinking in. But anyway, we have one attendee that wants to speak. Oh, Sabina,
Mayor,
go
if
ahead.
I could, yeah, I just want to say I don't disagree with you that we're doing a lot of this stuff, and I agree we are at the forefront of a lot of these things. And sometimes articulating it and saying that this is what we're committed to doing is something which our residents are looking for. And if you remember the youth group, the interns, that was also their question. So if we have something which we say we have declared that we are moving towards these goals, it gives a message to our community, to anybody who asks about it, that we are seriously moving forward and we're doing all these things, which you've already stated, right? We're probably doing half the things anyways to move towards it. But this question comes up more so from the young people right now in our community. People who are concerned. I don't know about anybody else, but I know I can constantly get this question asked, and something which either we set as a declaration or we set as, this is what our commitment is something which we can, just like we do proclamations, proclaiming that we are serious about some of these things. Sends a good message to the community that the council is serious about it, and we are at the forefront of it. So that's my goal, that something that gives a message, a proclamation, however we want to put it, saying to the community that we're taking climate action and climate change very seriously, and as a city we're committed by doing everything that we're doing, right? Whether it's how our waste management contract is structured, right? That's all leading towards how we're decreasing our carbon footprint, how we are committed to MCE and making sure that our electricity, with our electricity usage, we have a smaller carbon footprint. So I think those are the things. It doesn't have to be complicated. There doesn't have to be some document which is declaring that we will end world hunger, or we're going to do some big things. But even articulating, and it can go to the policy committee, articulating what we are doing right now as a city, as a responsible city, towards decreasing our carbon footprint. So that's kind of my ask.
Well, I will repeat that we are doing everything you're doing in the climate action plan, but we are part of a document, Diesel Free in 33, that we have restated from 2018 that Governor Jerry Brown started. And if they want to see what the document looks like and then tell us, well, we're not doing anything, or you need to do more. I mean, anybody can say you need to do more, but we're doing it, what we can do. And that's really what's going on here in our climate action plan. But if you guys want to take a look at it at policy, I will tell you the same thing. Okay, how is this different, or is it replacing the proclamation that we signed on to in 2018? That's all. Anyway, we got a caller user one that wants to hear, and I'm sure chime in on this too. So let's bring her in. And I'm not sure if this is council comments or city comments or whichever one you want. We can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I want to respond to Councilmember Zafar's comment about climate crisis. It's really arson. I don't know if you've been reading the news. A Palo Alto woman was recently charged for the bonfire that burned weeks and weeks. A lot of these are actually manufactured. And we already have a czar governor, Governor Newsom. He's already executive ordered this and that. There is no climate crisis. There is only greed crisis. There are a lot of money to be made if we move towards electric vehicles. And as a public, I am so sick of paying for those people who want to buy electric vehicles. Go ahead. But why should I pay for those people who want to turn electric, digital, and whatever, how you want to live your life, that's fine. But here in city of San Ramon, we also are the headquarters of Chevron. And as a public, I've always really appreciated Chevron. My kids have participated in a lot of charities, a lot of sports organizations, a lot of community events that were sponsored and paid for by Chevron. They are a very responsible and they are a good community partner. And they have already just recently promised to spend a lot of money to improve on the emission, whatever that they're requiring them to do at the Bay Area Air Control. We should give them a chance. There are people who don't want to live like you guys do. I don't want to go electric. You guys think that it's okay to take, free things? I don't want to, because when you're taking free electricity during peak hours, what you're forcing the governments to do is to have to buy batteries to store up. And then in the process, it raises everyone's expenses because we all have to pay taxes. That is un-American. Let there be a choice. Go through policy if you want to talk about electric vehicles. Please also put in policy to invite Chevron people. I would like to hear what they have to say, because that's the kind of lifestyle I'm used to, and I refuse to be ordered and come and set a fire at my house or something, or threaten me at my child's school, or threaten me to put me in mental institute or whatever. I resent these bullies, electric car bullies. Enough. Stop. Thank you.
Okay, that ends the public comment on the council comments and mayor's comments. If there's no further comments, we will adjourn to the next regular scheduled meeting, which is on October 26th. And before we get out of here, what else do we have one I'm missing, Christina? I'm finished for the day. Is there a meeting in between there that I've missed that's special or something else? Or is it October 26th?
The city council has 2 special meetings next week. There's a joint meeting on Tuesday and there's a special meeting on Wednesday, the 20th as well.
Oh, joy. Thank you very much. We will see you for the regular meeting on the 26th and whatever that next Tuesday thing is that was just announced by the city clerk. Hits just keep happening. Have a good evening, everyone. Thanks. It's been a long one. I appreciate you hanging in there.